Hey, good morning. Happy Tuesday of the week. Matt Bergen here with Infinitas Realty. Still loving that sign. So this is the third installment, if you will, of this video podcast based off of questions or topics that people reach out to me and ask me to speak about. So if you recall, or if you've seen, if not, you can go back and look. First one was just kind of me. Just how did I go from not being a realtor to being a realtor to being a pretty damn good one. Week two was the process of selling a house from our initial conversation up until the point of activating the house from sale. And then today is going to be from activation to settlement. What does that process look like? So as you recall, we put a lot of work into prepping a property for sale before it hits the market. On my end, I start by having the house power washed, landscaped, professionally staged, and then professional photographs. I carry that expense just because I know that we have to have our listings, our homes for sale, also known as our listings, to have a strong online posture. That is what attracts people that are looking for houses by way of their cell phone, tablet, laptop, the internet. That's how people look for houses. So when they see your listing on the internet, it has to look good. So now we've gone all the way to the point. All right, today's the day of activation. Actually, today's Tuesday, so we more than likely would not be activated today. What I do is I activate listings on Thursdays. Why is that? Specifically for the Tri-County area, St. Mary's, Calvert, Charles, because there's such a large portion of the buyer population that are employed in some capacity by the government or NAS Pax River or an auxiliary infrastructure thereof, base thereof. So they get to enjoy a compressed work schedule, also known as CWS. So when we activate properties on Thursdays, we facilitate Thursday evening showings because people don't have to work the next day, but also we're facilitating showings for half of those aforementioned people employed by the base is a 3-day weekend, right? So they get Friday off. What a perfect opportunity to go look at a property. We want to facilitate as much, man, I'm saying facilitate a lot, but it's a good word. We want to facilitate as much foot traffic coming out of the gate as possible. The best way to do that and the most intentional way to do that is by activating properties on Thursdays, knowing that such a large portion of the buyer populace has a 3-day weekend starting the next day, Friday. So we activate on Thursdays. So many times the sellers, they live in the property that's actively being sold. So what I do is we set you up in this platform. It's called Showing Time. So what happens is a buyer sees the property. If they are working with a buyer's agent, a realtor, they'll say, hey, Susie or John, let's go see this joint. It's hot. So the realtor will go on to Showing Time and request a showing. They can't just show up, right? They have to request it. So if you live in the property, once that request is made, you'll get a text message, an email, a phone call, all of them. It's completely up to you. And it'll basically say something along the lines of, a showing has been requested Friday, the 11th from 3:30 to 4 o'clock p.m. You, as the homeowner that also lives in the property, you can say yes to approve showing, no, not a good time, or you can propose a different time. So say it doesn't work for you, you got a late business meeting, you got family coming over, whatever. But you have control over when people are allowed to come toward that home. You approve it. So best practice is you as the seller step outside of the house and allow that house to be shown by a licensed real estate agent with just the agent and the buyers. The reason for that is if you've bought houses before and you've gone and looked with a realtor or whatever, it negatively impacts the experience, the showing experience, if you've got a seller in the house while you're there. It just makes people a little bit uncomfortable. Not everybody, but most people. So best practice, seller, step out, let them, walk the home without you there. Upon completion of that showing, that same platform, Showing Time, will shoot an email to the agent and request feedback from their experience. All right, so in most cases, if the buyers are excited and they're interested and they have some intention of making an offer, that agent in almost all cases will call me, the listing agent, say, hey, this is so-and-so. We showed X property. My buyers, they're looking to make an offer. Do you have anything in hand? If so, can you wait to give me time to formulate an offer, collect the buyer's signatures, and get over to you? If the buyers are not interested, we will become aware of that when the buyer's agent fills out that feedback form. So some basic questions on the feedback form. What are your clients interested in the property? Yes or no? Rate your experience from 1 to 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. What is your opinion on the price? Is it too high, just right, or too low? What are some other comments? So it's kind of like a text box. They can say, buyers like the house, but decided they really need the garage, or they really needed that fourth or fifth bedroom. So we'll get that feedback. Now, the thing I like about that is we allow the market, the buyer market, to tell us if there's anything we need to adjust within our control based off that buyer feedback, that buyer experience. For instance, previously in the second episode, I talked about how I don't normally recommend my clients put money into the property for like new carpet or new paint. But if the comment is made, they like the home, but the carpet's pretty beat up and worn, awesome. We were expecting that already. We have built that into our budget. So I can reply to the buyer's agent and say, you know what, you're 100% right. We had a feeling that could be an issue with the buyer. So what we've done is we have a credit for new carpet, and we want to give your buyer the opportunity to choose the color and style. So we've alleviated the one thing that the buyer doesn't like and facilitated them feeling comfortable with working with their agent to put together an offer. Sometimes the agent just doesn't respond to the feedback. Indicative of the buyer's not interested and the agent's either too busy or too lazy to fill it out. It is what it is. But we have an opportunity to listen to that feedback and make adjustments if needed. Now, if they say, decided that the home was too close to the road and didn't feel safe for the children, there's nothing we can do about that. Oh, well. Now, when a buyer's agent or buyer's agents decide they want to put in an offer, that's when we get an offer in, and we will review it I will review it with my seller clients. So the first thing I do is I run what's called an estimated net from sale based off the scope of that offer. I take things like obviously the purchase price, the settlement date, any concessions if applicable, is there a home warranty? What is the split of recordation transfer of deed and title, paying off the seller's payoff, or what their principal balance payoff is for that month. So I run a net. So I can say, based off the scope of this offer, all things included, this is what you can expect to walk away with. That's a great way of assessing the offer. Now, if we get multiple offers in, I will run nets, and so you can compare apples to apples, but then I will do what I call as a risk assessment of each offer. So let's say offer A, the associated net or the proceeds is $100,000, and offer B, the associated net or walkaway proceeds, is $90,000. So if we just went off the net, offer A seems more desirable than offer B, and the seller would gravitate towards offer A. But if I perform a risk assessment of each offer, basically a risk assessment is what is the statistical likelihood of going from ratification or mutual acceptance of offer and this thing actually making it all the way to the settlement table on the proposed date within the offer. So let's say that offer A that's got the higher net, but that buyer has yet to obtain a pre-approval. The purchase of that property is contingent upon them selling a property that isn't even listed for sale. Government, their loan is government financing, which is a little bit more stringent on appraisal and like inspections and things like that. But the net from that sale is $10,000 more, but the theoretical likelihood of that closing on time and on target there's a lot of risk there. Whereas offer B doesn't yield my sellers as high of a net. It's only $90,000, but it's a cash offer, no inspections, close in 3 weeks. Obviously, Offer B has way less risk. So I don't make that decision for the sellers. At the end of the day, I know and respect that it's your house. If you're willing to take on the risk associated with offer A, because you want to try to make $10,000 more dollars, great. If you say, nah, you're right, that's pretty risky, that doesn't feel right, we'll go with offer B. Now, before we get to that point, it's worth mentioning that if my sellers give me permission in our listing agreement to disclose the existence of other offers, what I will do, I will inform buyer agent A and buyer agent B. I'll reach out to them both and say, hey, thank you so much for the offer. I wanted to make you aware that we are now in a multiple offer scenario. And I want to give you time to go back and have a conversation with your buyer and come back to us with their highest and best offer if what you provided doesn't reflect that. Obviously, sometimes, buyers, they'll come in, come in under list price and try to ask for high concessions just to see what they can get, or try to haggle and see if we can meet in the middle somewhere. When I give those buyers agents that opportunity, then when they come back and they either confirm, nope, that's our highest and best. Say offer B is, you know what, that's our highest and best offer. That's the best we can do. And offer A says, you know what, we'll increase the purchase price by $5,000. So that net has gone up, but the risk has stayed the same. So then when I have that conversation with my seller clients, we're able to assess everything to determine which of the two offers is the best path forward, which is the most executable contract that yields the most desirable results. It's pretty simple, but it's something that isn't overly common, that risk assessment part. It's really easy to set up that net estimate, right? Probably takes about 15 minutes. But you're not looking at the full picture to make a decision that's in the best interest of you or your family. So we get those. So we select an offer. So say in this scenario, you, the seller, you say, you know what, offer B. I'd rather go with the guarantee with still a good net from sale, good, proceeds amount, than absorb all that risk with offer A. So now, okay, great. We sign it. We're under contract. Boom, celebrate. Well, that's like the first milestone. It's a great milestone. We've got the property under contract. Awesome. But there's still a lot of work to be done. So unless the buyer has stated that they're not going to perform inspections, which is very unlikely, about 97% of buyers will perform inspections on the property before they purchase it, especially if they need financing from a lender. And depending upon that loan type, if it's a federally backed loan, there are certain inspections and certifications that are required for the lender to finance that loan. So then we go into what I call like milestone 2, is the inspection phase. So the buyer's agent, utilizing that same ShowingTime platform, will schedule a showing. It will go to the sellers to accept and step out of the property to allow a licensed inspector to perform their inspection. So inspections range, usually, like most common is residential. That's where they go in the property. They look at the electrical, they look at the appliances, they look at the plumbing, they look for signs of mold, signs of water intrusion, all those things. Basically like the functionality of the property. Another second most common is termite. So a lot of government-backed loans, FHA, USDA, VA, they require a termite certification that shows that there is no active termites or there's no sign of termite damage in the property. If the house is on a well, a lot of times the buyer will perform what's called a water quality test, whereas they pull a sample from the kitchen sink, water sample, send it to the lab. The lab will assess if that's got E. coli, bacteria, coliform. And if so, it's not a big deal. It's a simple process of treating the well, but we want to be able to, the buyers want to identify what's the quality of the water, and if there's an issue, have the seller have the water treated. It's usually about $250 to $450. If the house is on a septic system, so not public sewer, but a septic, the buyer will have a septic inspection. And if they have good guidance, they will not do what's called a dye test, where you just introduce a dye agent into like a toilet or house, flush the toilet, and see if that red dye bubbles up in the yard. It's not very indicative of the functionality of a septic system. They'll do what's called a 4-point inspection or a pick and shovel, where they actually dig up the septic tank, take off the lid, do a visual inspection, make sure the structural integrity of the septic tank and the lid are intact. They'll check the levels, right? The solids and the liquid levels. And then what they'll do is they'll take a garden hose running out there, turn the hose on for a minimum of 20 minutes. And what they're checking for is to make sure that the liquid level does not rise when you're running water for 20 minutes. So if the septic is functioning properly, the water level goes to this water outlet baffle, and then it goes to a distribution box. And then that distribution box moves that water out to the drain fields where it's absorbed into the soil. If the water level does rise during that 20-minute period, that means that there's an obstruction somewhere down the line and we've got an issue. They'll send us that report and we will need to address it. So those are the inspections. Once those inspections are complete, if there are any discrepancies or deficiencies found with the property, the buyer's agent will usually generate what's called a property inspections notice. So what that is the formal document whereas the buyer can request that the seller make repairs. So let's say they're requesting 3 repairs. We get that property inspections notice and we have 5 days to decide how we want to formally respond to their repair requests. There are 4 ways with which a seller can respond to that request. Option A, seller agrees to make all repairs. Option B, seller is not making any repairs. Option C, seller will make some of the repairs. So you ask for 3, we think 2 are justified, we'll make these 2, we're not making the third. Option D, seller will provide a credit in lieu of repairs. So, hey, we think your repairs, those repair requests are justified. We had a contractor look. The cost of all those repairs are $1,500. We don't want to schedule it and have it done and all that stuff. How about we just give you this invoice and we give you a $1,500 credit. You can take care of the repairs however you see fit. Now, just know that if the seller's response is anything but option A, seller agrees to make all repairs, the buyer has the right to terminate the contract with no penalty. So they don't lose their EMD, just they have the right to terminate the contract. So just something to keep in mind. All right, so we get through the repair phase. It's usually once both parties have come to agreement on repairs that the buyer's lender will order the appraisal. Why is that? So an appraisal costs anywhere from $550 to $750. The lender does not want to order that appraisal if there's a risk that this deal will fall through because the buyer and seller cannot agree to repairs. So why make a buyer pay, let's say, $600 for an appraisal on a property they're actually not buying? So it's usually, that's the point in the process where the lender gets the green light to order the appraisal. Once we've gotten through inspections and buyers and sellers have agreed to repairs, an appraisal is ordered. Again, the sellers will get that notification, that request from Showing Time. Hey, can we come in there 12:30 on Thursday to perform the appraisal? Sellers should accept that to the best of their ability if they can facilitate it. Hit accept. For the appraisal, the sellers can stay in the house. Usually the buyers are not there. It's usually just the appraiser, and he or she does not mind if you're chilling there working from your laptop. So that appraisal is performed. It takes between 3 to 7 days, depending on the appraiser, depending on the financing type, and kind of depending on the workload of the appraiser. If they've got 30 appraisals, it just takes them a while to get to that respective one in their stack. If the appraisal is good, we usually don't hear anything from the lender. Now we will ask. In our process, we have this. We've kind of got like this trigger point to alert us that, hey, we need to reach out and verify that the appraisal is good. If the appraisal is bad, the lender will tell the listing agent and tell the buyer agent. So what's a bad appraisal? Well, there's 2 things. One, the value of the appraisal. The appraised value of the home is less than that of the contractual sales price. So what happens then? Well, we've got 4 options. Option A, the seller will lower the contractual sales price to meet that of the appraised value. Most common, I'd say. Option B, the buyer will make up the difference between the appraised value and the sales price out of their pocket. Not as common. It really depends if they absolutely love the house. Option C, buyer and seller sort of split the difference. So let's say the appraised value is $10,000 less than the contractual sales price. If we want to meet in the middle, the seller will reduce the sales price $5,000 and the buyer will come out of pocket $5,000. Let's meet in the middle. Option C. Option D, we don't come to an agreement. Contract is terminated without penalty to the buyer. They get their earnest money back. So once we get through the appraisal, all that's good. Then there are some administrative and preparatory actions, getting ready for settlement. The seller will need to engage with the title company, give them all your loan payoff information. You got to give them the bank that holds the note, or like that is financing the property. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, PNC, Wells Fargo. Mr. Cooper is a big one now. Reminds me of Hanging with Mr. Cooper, for those of you that are a little bit older. Great show. So we have to get the institution name, the account number. The title company will take that information. They'll reach out to the lender, get the payoff, and make sure that on the date of settlement, a portion of that sales price goes to pay off that principal balance. So that gets zeroed out. Take care of that. You engage with the title company. About 3 days, within 3 days of settlement, we'll get what's called a draft ALTA. So the ALTA, as it's referred to today, used to be called the HUD-1 for people that have bought houses in the past. Essentially what that is, it's a breakdown of the buyer's debits and credits, the seller's debits and credits, to make sure that the title company has captured everything correctly, captured the correct purchase price, correctly captured if there are any concessions from seller to buyer, properly captured any administrative fees, recordation, transfer, deed and title, water escrows, all those things. Just gives us the opportunity to make sure that there's been no mistakes made in those numerical figures before we show up on the date of settlement. We take a look at that, verify everything looks good. Sellers show up on the settlement date, bring at least one form of ID to show that the person that's signing is really the person that's on the deed and title and on the contract. Seller side goes pretty quick. Sellers can sign in about 15, 20 minutes, in and out, and you've now sold your house. Now, there's a lot of other little things in there, but I didn't want to take 2 hours to make a video. So general concept, general flow, general process from activation to the date of settlement with respect to selling a house. If you have any additional questions, please reach out. Shoot me a message, give me a call, shoot me a text, email, whatever. So I think for the next topic, I'm going to talk to the software platform I built, because I talk about all these like steps and criteria and actionable items. Well, I actually own a software company that has built that out for my clients, both buyers and sellers. Whereas, it's very similar to the Domino's Pizza Tracker. Whereas when we ratify a contract, every milestone, every actionable item, every due date of every actionable item, every responsible party for every actionable item. So I just want to kind of walk you guys through that next time, so you get an idea of what Property One looks like, why people love it, why I created it, and why I think it's the future of real estate. But until then, I hope you have an awesome week. Today's Tuesday, so you still got days left. Make the most of them. I appreciate you watching. Again, if you have any ideas for topics for me to speak to, shoot me a message. I appreciate everybody that's given me ideas thus far. I've got a list. I will speak to all of them. Thanks so much. Have an awesome day, an awesome week. Till next week, my friends.